Hello, I want to welcome you to my channel. I'm Box Van D on YouTube, and recently, like in February, they put out a documentary of my nomad life in the UK. Ben Fogle, a well-known actor from the UK, came with his crew from London, England, to spend a week with me filming my life and my story. So if you haven't seen that documentary and you would like to see it, please email me. I have my email address in the description below this video. Send me an email requesting to see the documentary. I will send you information of how you can see it from the US. Anybody in the UK can go to that, but from the US it's a little harder. So today, I would like to share a little bit about the time I spent with Ben and his crew, and also give you a little history of how I became a nomad. And I would like to share some pictures from my childhood, and also some pictures that were taken during the documentary. So I hope you'll enjoy this. I was born the third child of five to Mary and Larry Brooks. My dad was an orphan when he was growing up. He had a very large struggle with his four brothers to raise them, and he was semi-raised by his aunt and uncle. He never really had parenting, so wasn't really taught how to be a parent. So, as a third child of five in a dysfunctional family, there were a lot of obstacles in our lives, a lot of abuse, lot of dysfunction, no stability, and a rough time as we were growing up. I was born in 1952 in a hospital in Washington, D.C. We lived in Maryland at the time. I had an older brother and an older sister. So my parents had been somewhat educated, my mother more so than my dad. I don't think my dad ever finished high school. He was uh, involved in a lot of, according to him, illegal activity. So back then, who knows? I don't know how much of his story was true. We did some genealogy, but we really never found out a whole lot. I did meet a couple of my uncles when I was very, very young. Met a few of my cousins on my dad's side, but we really never got to know them. My mother was raised in Detroit, Michigan. She was also one of five children, and so five seems to be the magic number. Um, so my mother was educated and finished school, and she worked for IBM for many years. My dad did a lot of odd jobs. He was a cook in a bakery, he cooked in restaurants, he was a janitor, a truck driver, a bus driver, and a cab driver, and eventually they became crop workers, field workers. So that's kind of how I became a nomad. By the time I was born, we had already been traveling around the country quite a bit. My dad always seemed to have itchy feet. He never stayed in one place for very long. So we moved all the time. And by the time I was probably 7 years old, we were already working in the fields, in the crops. So we were fruit pickers or whatever. We picked every kind of fruit. We picked green beans on the vines in Oregon. We picked cherries and apples in Washington. We picked strawberries in Oregon and all kinds of berries, really. We picked tomatoes and picked up plums and nuts off the ground under the trees in California, all over California. We picked peaches and oranges and all kinds of citrus. We moved every few months throughout my entire life. My oldest sister married when she was 15 years old, and my brother went into the military a couple years later when he turned 17. I believe they enlisted him at age 17 at that time. So then I was left with my two younger sisters. So it was a struggle, and I kind of took over the parenting of my two younger sisters. My mother was always working, so we really have never had a whole lot of training at a very young age. And my dad was always gone, so we didn't get a whole lot from him. When we did, it was not pleasant, not like a loving existence. Anyhow, us four older kids were about 2 years apart. I don't have a picture of my baby sister when we were young because she wasn't born yet. So I probably can get one later, but I don't have one right now. So she wasn't in these pictures. The next pictures you'll see is my grandparents and my great grandmother. These are grandparents on my mother's side. They were from Detroit, Michigan. And this here is my great grandma Susie, and she was from Tennessee. So that's really all the pictures I have of my family. I'm not really sure how old I was in this picture, but probably about 5 years old. That's me on the left side with my sister under me and this 2 years younger than me. This is my brother-in-law and my oldest sister in this picture. They took me in out of a foster home when I was 16 years old, and they took care of me for about a year. At that point, I decided I was ready to get out on my own. I got a job at a local Circle K and got an apartment, and it started out my own life. I graduated from high school in 1970, and I finished school after I had my first son. So I had another child 4 years later, and both boys. And my oldest son gave me a lot of trouble throughout his life. He was abused by my first husband. I made a lot of bad choices in husbands. So he ended up in trouble throughout his life, and the youngest one was pretty good kid for the most part until he became 17 years old. Then he wanted to get wind into his rebellious stage. Anyhow, he moved away and he got into trouble with some friends, and then they lived in Arizona, and he died in a swimming accident when he was diving off a bridge in Arizona. So I don't have a lot to share about my kids because I don't really share much information about them, but that's pretty much it. So that's a little backstory of how I became a nomad. I moved a lot even while I was raising my kids. I share a lot of these stories on my channel, and you'll just have to go watch some of those videos to hear more about my life. And about 6 years ago, when I left my husband because it was a very abusive situation, I didn't have a choice. I moved into my car, and I lived in my car for about 6 months. Then I became very ill. Anyhow, that's all on the channel too. So last year, oh well, actually 3 years ago, I started my YouTube channel, and became pretty well known in the community of nomad life through Bob Wells' cheap RV living when he put out the video of me living in my car on $800 a month. That video went viral. It has almost 5 million views right now. So, last year, uh, because I guess they learned about me through Nomadland and through the cheap RV living uh, channel, a film company contacted me and asked me if I would be willing to do a documentary of my nomad life. And of course, I was excited and I finally agreed to it. Then, Ben Fogle from the UK, he's a well known actor. He does the TV series in the UK called Lives in the Wild. He brought his crew over. They spent a full week with me, filming me and sharing my life with me and getting to know me and letting me tell the world about my life. Sorry if I stutter. I had a stroke a few years back. I never got my tongue right since then. So the rest of this video will be about the time I spent with Ben Fogle. He literally slept in my car, not the whole time, but he did sleep in my car, as that was what I had as a guest house. So I'll share some of the memories and pictures from that, and I hope you'll enjoy this. While I do the showing the pictures, I will be either singing the song Thank You God, which was in the documentary, or saying my poem, My Daddy Was a Traveling Man, during this picture scene. Um, so I hope you'll enjoy that too. This is Ben Fogle. He was the presenter of this film, New Lives in the Wild, Series 16, Episode 8, Arizona. So I met him at Trafalgar Square at the fountain in Lake Havasu, Arizona. And from there, we spent a week and traveled around and showed him what my nomad life was like. Thank you, God, for showing me how you intended for my life to be. Thank you, God, for guiding me into a world where I can be just me. I love the mountains, the trees, and the streams. I love the desert and wildlife it brings. The freedom in my life allows me to roam. Wherever I go, it becomes my new home. I don't have much, but it is enough. My happiness doesn't depend on stuff. Friends that I've made are a treasure to me. These are the things that matter to me. Thank you, God, for showing me how you intended for my life to be. Thank you, God, for guiding me into a world where I can be just me. Life is exciting, not easy for sure. Fresh air and sunshine, but my health is secure. How did God teach you when there is less strife? I am content to live a daily life. Learning
I love my God who has given to me beauty and wonders amazing to see. Thank you, God, for showing me how you intended for my life to be. Thank you, God, for guiding me into a world where I can be just me. He is my guide to where I should be. Just look around you and get out to sea. God is my strength, inspiring me to be. I have become who He led me to be. Thank you, God, for showing me how you intended for my life to be. Thank you, God, for guiding me into a world where I can be just me. Thank you, God, for guiding me into a world where I can be just me.
So I hope you enjoyed this. My daddy was a traveling man. We roamed from town to town. In him was a wanderlust. He had to move around. To see the world was his desire. It burned in him just like a fire. To quench his thirst, he had no choice. In his head was like a voice. Mommy said, "Lord, not again." Over and over she said this to him, but in the end she would just give in. A few weeks or months, not very long, Dad got the itch. It was time to move on. Never time to say goodbye. Resisting at first, we kids would then cry. The crops in the field, they beckoned us. A hard day's work was reckoned to us. Mommy sighed and cried. Yes, I know she tried, exhausted from resisting, but Daddy kept insisting. In defeat, she gave in, because of course she loved him. Our life was rough, but it made us tough. We saw the country so amazed and learned about life through the haze. A life of adventure and experience abound, things you could never find living in town. We all grew up and left the nest. At the end of the day, we were truly blessed. Now I roam from town to town. I have the wanderlust. I must travel around. I don't need no sticks and bricks. Home on the road is where I get my kicks. God made this world for us to enjoy. New places to me help me find joy. No one is being blamed. The life I'm living, I'm not ashamed. I don't seek fortune or fame, but what I've learned in life is what I became. My daddy was a traveling man. He roamed from town to town. Now, as a nomad on the road, real peace is what I've found. Freedom, adventure, still so much to see. I've only just begun to be who I was meant to be. I hope you have enjoyed the pictures of the time I spent with Ben and his crew from the UK. Also, I hope you enjoyed my song and my poem, and I hope you'll continue watching my channel. Please subscribe, hit the notifications bell so you won't be notified when I put out another video, and please keep coming back. If you enjoyed this and you want to support this channel, check out the links in the description below this video. You never know what somebody's going through and what little things would encourage them to feel better. Tell somebody you love.